Eu aqui olhando no português, tem 72 aguardando, que eu estou no YouTube aguardando aqui no
Ok.
português, né? 72 aguardando.
Não mudando você?
Eu disse que eu escrevi as caras. Olha pra trás, Yuri. Olha pra trás.
Deixa eu desligar aqui. Sérgio?
Oi.
Só para confirmar. Então, todos receberam o link?
Todos
YouTube?
receberam
Todos
o link.
inscritos?
Todos inscritos.
Tem uma pessoa dizendo aqui para mim que não recebeu. Mandou mensagem aqui.
Mas a gente então vou reenviar para todos. Mas nós mandamos para todos na sexta, para os que estão inscritos.
Na sexta
Hoje
dos que estão inscritos, né?
E hoje a gente confirmou, vou encaminhar, eu encaminho para todos. Vou fazer agora.
Beleza. Tá legal.
Tá, manda novamente. Eu vou mandar de Portugal, não, do Brasil, os brasileiros.
Ok. Acho que mandou na sexta-feira. Mandou na sexta-feira. Não viu? Ele vai mandar.
A câmera da gente vai ficar desabilitada para abrir?
Não, a câmera vocês podem deixar aberta. O áudio e vídeo faz o crop, eles chamam.
Pois é, agora tá de novo, igual tava o da mão, agora tá o meu da câmera.
Tá aberta, tá fechada a câmera.
Não tá deixando eu abrir, tá aparecendo aquele bloqueio novamente.
Parece que deixa eu ver.
Não sei o que foi.
Vê se mudou alguma coisa para você aí.
Agora sim. Obrigada.
Nada.
É só curiosidade, começaremos pontualmente às 10 horas?
Sim, sim.
Perfeito.
Só para confirmar no meu relógio aqui, são 9h58, ok?
No celular 9h59 aqui de novo.
No meu Já deu 10 horas aqui. Vou começar então, tá?
Good morning, everyone.
Muito obrigado pela participação.
Thank you for the participation.
Eu vou passar logo a palavra para
I'll give the floor to Tania Pimenta, that will perform the opening ceremony of our event. She is Secretary General of External Control of the Court of Accounts of Brazil. Thank you. Good morning. It's with a great honor that I welcome you all auditors, researchers, managers, and all the specialists that are here with us today on YouTube. On behalf of the Secretariat of External Control of the Federal Court of Accounts of Brazil, it is an honor to me to open up this webinar of warming up of our first seminar, The Future of Public Auditing, Data, Innovation, and Citizenship, that will occur in October this year. We are going through a very difficult moment with digital transformation, a lot of complexity in a more connected society. So this requires a lot of thought on our role. Public auditing cannot be seen as just an activity of compliance. No, this is not the way we should go. This needs to evolve. It needs to consolidate as a strategic function that adds value and delivers results, and that also gives good governance in organizations, and overall that generates trust to the citizen. And it is in this scenario that the conduction of this seminar becomes not only timely but also essential. The goal here is to create a good environment to exchange experiences, ideas, information, and to present works that can approach these trends that are molding the future of monitoring. So to do that, this seminar was structured on 4 axes that are interconnected in a strategic way. The first one is public auditing focused on citizens. It reminds us of the most noble purpose of our work, which is guaranteeing that public resources can become quality services to give quality to the life of people. But to do that, we need to reflect on the second axis, which is competences and skills of the auditor of the future. What is that professional we need to train? Well, it is a specialist that, in spite of technical knowledge, needs to also control data science and also needs to navigate on complex environments and of several disciplines. That professional profile will explore different fields that will take us to the third pillar, which is innovative approaches in public sector. And in this pillar, we will look into experiences, practical cases, learned lessons, and how we are applying in practice on a daily basis those new methodologies to turn our work more precise and relevant. And finally, the fourth axis, which is artificial intelligence in public auditing. These technologies are not only a hype, it's not a purpose in itself. These are powerful tools that, if we used properly, they can broaden exponentially our capacity of analysis and our social impact. So this webinar today that will be conducted right now, up to noon, it's our starting point. We will have the opportunity to listen to some of the works that have been submitted and selected by the assessment committee, and also to talk about some debates that will be intensified down the road in the seminar that will take place in October here in Brasilia. And remember that everyone interested have up to August to submit these works, August 11th. So I encourage you to participate actively, to send questions and collaborate, because the future of public auditing will not be built by only one institution. It will be built by a strong community, an engaged community, as the one we have here today. So with these thoughts, we can see that this is more than good practices. This is an obligation by serious organizations that want to keep being relevant and delivering value and transforming the life of citizens. To finish, I thank all the speakers that have shared their knowledge with us, our sponsors as well, our partners, and each one of you that are here watching us. And I give the floor back to Luisa so she can conduct the presentations. Thanks. Thank you, Tanya, for the excellent opening ceremony. Really good. And without any further ado, to start with that we'll see in October, I give the floor to Elmar Pessoa, Education Oversight Manager of the Court of Accounts of Pernambuco, with the presentation Transporting Our Future, Actions and Strategies of External Oversight for Safe and Quality School Transportation. Elmar, you have the floor. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to talk about this situation and to show the experience of Pernambuco in auditing especially. And it's not as traditional as we see usually. So we need to change a little bit our way of proceeding. I'm going to share my screen here. And we'll talk about school transportation. And I wanted to say that school transportation has a lot of trouble, but they have solution. So this trend is something that we can work upon. That way we can have better ways to keep moving forth. So this presentation will be based on 3 pillars. First, what is the project and how we are following up that process. Firstly, what took the Court of Accounts of Pernambuco to engage in this project? Basically, it was all about achieving our intention of improving the current situation through a several set of actions to support management in a way that our school transportation can be transformed. So it is a project that started in 2021. We're here engaged, and we want to perform on this topic until the problem is no longer happening. So what is the landscape here in Pernambuco? So here we have about 400 million reais invested in school transportation. And we perform these public transportation through different ways. We have maintenance of the vehicles, we have the drivers, so there are a lot of expenditures that are involved, in which if we analyze, we're saying, okay, we have this much invested per year. So it is important to improve further these efforts. Here in Pernambuco, back then we have 305,000 students transported by school transportation. That number today is closer and closer to 400,000 students. And to understand that magnitude, this is about 7,000 vehicles that transport students daily here in the state of Pernambuco. Well, what about the problem? Well, we have all these numbers here, but on the other hand, we have the landscape, which are roads in bad shape. Some of the vehicles are not adequate as well. So these are really bad numbers that we need to improve, because that way we can better exert our functions in investing in transportation. And if we put everything together, then what can happen is accidents, which happen quite often actually. So the court has worked during several years in school transportation. This is a coordinated action with the municipality and the state. Sometimes we talk to the managers, we see there were fines that were applied. We assessed everything, but everything kept happening over and over. The situation was the same. So it was a vicious circle that did not end. So we need to start thinking differently. That's what we thought at the moment. So that way we can bring new answers, because we were not having good results. We needed to change a little bit the way we worked. And that's where we came up with the project Transforming Our Future. Instead of only work in, pointing out problems without bringing solutions, we started saying, okay, hold up, we need to understand what the problem is, identify what are the causes, and start building solutions, because solutions are often related to practical situations, and you have scenarios with particularities, so you need to deep understand that subject, so in that way you can start applying solutions or participate in the solution. And the Court of Accounts sometimes does not provide school transportation, so we don't have this special knowledge and practice. So we need to study so we can actually talk with the managers eye to eye and say, look, this is not working, this is working, and in this part we need to improve. And in order to understand this matter, we need to talk. And this is what we did through 2021. We tried to understand this matter. We did not want to reinvent the wheel. No. But we didn't want to start from scratch either. So we said, okay, so we need to look for solutions. So we talked to FMDE, we talked to the Trends of Brazil. Pernambuco was a great partner. We talked to Sebrae as well. We hold conversations with technology companies that deal with school transportation. We talk to Power Energies, and you will understand in a while why. We talk also with those people who provide their services. Also, the state of Paraná was an important partner in this study. We talked to the state of Goiás as well. We talked to the Academy of the University of Goiás to better understand how this system works and how it will be provided and how it is provided actually. So there will be no use in all of this if we do not try everything we're living. So if we test everything, then we need to look for some partners as well in the state of Pernambuco itself. We get in touch with municipalities to help us put into practice this with different regions of the state and different economic situations to try these solutions. And we saw that, yeah, there might be some problems, but each case is a different case, very particular one, that needs to be approached in a specific way. But yeah, we can create an average and say, look, this is basically the problem in general, and we can identify better what to do about it. And there were punctual situations for certain municipalities, so it's not only about the Pernambuco state as a whole. We need to see specific situations in each municipality and what to do about that later. Well, this project is divided in several strategies. management attention, projects of regularization, the price of the services, and also the execution of transparency and monitoring. So we need to think of all these phases, because our idea was helping the managers and taking their hand and saying, look, these are the difficulties we are experiencing in technical topics and the difficulty of labor to provide that type of information. So in this case, the core needs to think of different solutions to actually aid the managers. So they need to understand, and we need to understand, who are the ones who receive the service, where they live, what are the ways in these municipalities, and what type of transportation they need to have to get out of their places and arrive in their schools with safety. The second axis is quality and safety of the service. Because it was being said that there was bad quality services, sometimes inadequate vehicles, and there were roads that were not adequate as well, and sometimes drivers that did not have the appropriate skills, they did not have a license to drive the type of vehicle they were driving. So these were not the appropriate circumstances. So we tried to look for solutions to solve that problem, and we faced actually some problems. So this transportation sometimes is done, as I said, by inadequate vehicles. So we needed to demonstrate that, look, these vehicles do exist, but they cannot provide the service. These are vehicles that sometimes are really sturdy, but they are not adequate. And there is a solution, a possible solution for that. We can substitute these vehicles for adequate vehicles if we want. And we identified the roads to school, and to those roads we need a specific type of vehicles that can substitute the current ones that are not the appropriate ones. And then we faced, here in the state of Pernambuco, a big dilemma. So there is a motto here in the state that said that in some places there are vehicles that cannot reach. So there is no adequate vehicle for schools that can reach some places. And we count on the partnership of some manufacturers. We talk to the people that provide these buses for school transportation, and even two companies of the state of Rio Grande do Sul sent some vehicles to Pernambuco to try to solve that problem. But even that way, we saw that there were roads that are not accessible. And they said, okay, tell me what are the worst roads in Pernambuco in terms of access, and then we will go with these vehicles there. And we did so, and we proved that, yeah, there are regular vehicles that can do that type of transportation. And in doing so, the student can get out of his place or her place and arrive to the school with safety. Well, then, now we need to understand that there are adequate vehicles, but we need a project and show that an efficient project can fulfill its main intention. So we needed to understand the municipality, the location of these schools, where are the students located, where they live. And this is where power companies are important, because in order to do that, if you have the power bill, they have a number in front, and with that number we can know exactly where the student lives. That way we can connect the dots so we can know what is the closest school to what student. So we developed some methodologies to do so, and we conducted a research And it fit very well in transporting or transforming our future. Because there are many vehicles that transport students that are not the most efficient way to do so. So you can see here on screen this green line. This is the optimization line. This is the quantity of vehicles that are necessary for transportation, depending on the quantity of students that need to be transported. And then we reach an average number. So if it's over 40, we know that there are more vehicles than we need. So this is the optimization line that we need to draw. So the quantity of vehicles would be adequate for that municipality, okay? Obviously, this is a number that can be adequated depending on the situation, because this can show the possibility of augmenting or decreasing the number of vehicles that we need. This yellow line, on the other hand, is the adequation line. So the more adequated this vehicle is, the higher this line will be on screen, depending on the security situation of the vehicle, the road. So what we can observe here, the lower this 40 number here, the least adequate the vehicle will be. So it is important to see that this number can show the optimization quality that says, okay, this quantity of vehicles is adequate, and based on that we can invest without worsening the situation further. So this matter is being treated by the Court of Accounts in a very special way, because we understand that there are vehicles that are used in they are being underused depending on the situation. So there are vehicles that can be substituted as long as there is the possibility of sending another vehicle instead of it. So this cost can be reduced if we can send an adequate vehicle. And we can use these vehicles in different schedules. It can be used in the morning or in the afternoon, depending on the situation. But today we have the same vehicle for the morning, for the afternoon, and see, we had experiences, punctual experiences in the municipality of the west of Pernambuco, where we had initially 15 vehicles, those yellow ones, and more 35 vehicles, outsourced vehicles. And we try to optimize this fleet, and we've been working in this municipality for 3-4 years, so we eliminate all these outsourcing, because the vehicles they have in their ownership back then were enough. They didn't need to outsource any vehicles. So this type of research is being conducted here in Pernambuco, and there are also researchers that are trying to improve the situation in every municipality, so we can implement this idea with the formatization of this type of analysis, so we can apply this in a more general way for all the municipalities of Pernambuco as we want.
So we have the issue of the organization to help the small municipalities how you can hire. If you have an inadequate vehicle, you can improve it. You can optimize your fleet, but how you hire that? So I'll have to tell them. So this type of contract it could be direct or indirect or a mixed one. You can do both ways. And here I'll have the guidelines how to do it if you want more than one way of hiring. So we studied this subject, and we are doing that in on a manual It's the school transportation manual. So everything is written in a simple way. It's the extended manual, but we try to translate this manual in the learnship that we got. So we put that on the cordon of account, translated in 3 courses, and online model. Any civil servant or citizen can do it and understand a little bit more of transportation. So it's not a thing about it's right or wrong, it's how to get those information. So keep going. We had this big issue of to overpass outsource. So someone that subcontract other kind of service, and it's like an intermediator. So it's like to hire the owner of the bus that could not attend the requirements of the service, and then they hired a company to be an intermediate. So, and then to eliminate that, we can pass to it, so having this middleman. So with that, they got a fair price for the service and to receive a fair payment for it. Costs. And it's about to say, oh, you don't have a good vehicle, and you could hire it in a certain way and the right price. So we evaluate the costs involved on the services, the fixed one and the variable ones, and we know the way of hiring that, not only based on the cost, it's paid by the price, and we have this fixed cost, and it's the availability of the vehicle that generates to the municipality an expense. So we increase if it gets out of the garage or not. So maybe sometimes they don't get on the streets on the weekends, so sometimes it's just exclusive on the school transportation being paid to it. So we detailed, we not only just said the fixed cost, but we open a spreadsheet. We have a cost methodology where the citizen, when the manager can use this spreadsheet that's online and calculate the specific cost of the service, the depreciation of the items, the cost of the things, the fuel, everything was made to be available to the manager, so they could have an information and have the raw cost of it. And then we talked about we need to put that in a system. So we create a resolution where we guide the implementation of the service, the management of control. We are showing, we're not determine how the municipality should, sorry, we are determine the information that are necessary in a transparent way, so the social control could act as well, because the court is spread around all the municipality. So we need the social control to understand that's it's very important. So we got it this way to foster social control. So with that, we summarize inside this school transportation manual that's going to A2C, since hiring to contract management and transparency. So the manager that wants the information will have it. The result just show up in one of the municipality that we control with a partnership. We had savings. The first contract was 4 millions of reais. So they reinvest inside the school transportation system. So those vehicles that were inadequate could be improved. So something that they would have, it would replaced by better vehicles. So that's on the tip. Everything's on the student. The students are feeling the difference, the action of the Court of Accounts with their managers and the mayors. So what was necessary was to know how that was happening, how those actions that the court implemented and guided and spread, how that was observed by the municipalities. So we got this video now.
Deplorável, põe no ar.
Então, nós tínhamos notícia de que isso acontecia, certo? Mas precisamos ir a campo para saber o tamanho disso aí, certo? Então, fomos a campo em 2022, certo?
We monitoring around 200 vehicles, so this control have a data bank that was evaluated in a survey that generated a score to each vehicle. It generate the score of the municipality, and that generate the panel where the citizen can monitor that in their municipality how school transportation is happening. So we have this dashboard, and then we note every mayors and gave warnings about the situation of the municipality. So if they need to improve the school transportation or not. And then in 2022, we went through municipality regions and took those information to the mayors, the managers, and the citizens. So we repeat this action in 2023, and we report throughout the municipality with a representative sample of 4,500 vehicles. Half of the fleet was fiscalized by the managers, and we had other analysis. We saw that the situation was bad, improved since 2023, but it was bad. And so the managers, 180 of the 74 have had an adjustment of management where they were committed to improve the situation of this school transportation. Now, 2025, we're monitoring this adjust term after a year. We are here verifying some results. We can see we are evaluating each year. So we don't have subtitles, but for the first circle, it's the municipality legislation and how was the evolution. So each municipality has a legislation that's about school transportation, the issue of tracking the vehicles, and the municipality have that. One municipality had this service, the issue of the electronic management. We have this kind of service, and then the classification of the drivers that was very bad. Lots of drivers that were inadequate or qualified to school transportation, and no vehicle authorized by Detran Pernambuco. So that improved year by year, and we are measuring that every year, and with in a joint effort with the manager. So we are improving and have this monitoring of the service and how the municipality is advanced. The representation is still small. There is a lot to improve, but in a consistent way, the service has been improving. So that translates. We can observe this issue of the acquisition of the vehicles that are being done by their own resources. They are purchased by their own resources. So in a historical series from 2018 to 2020, they got a very small acquisition. In 2022, from the activation of the Court of Account, we got more acquisitions. In 2024, more than 1,000 that were programmed. We received, they were acquired. So 1/3 of the fleet here of the school transportation were renewed from the action of the court. The court is someone that leverage. We didn't buy a bus, the municipality bought it, and we engage that. So we cannot, we shouldn't replace all of them. We need to study what's necessary to know if what they got is enough and replace the ones that are in need. And we are still working, very hard work, and with partnership. We don't do anything by ourselves. And the court here is supporting. And on this work, we are trying to do this management. Thank you so much. Congratulations for your work. Congratulations for the initiatives. An excellent example how this change of focus can increase the benefit for the citizens. How focusing on citizens could be implemented. So congratulations. We have interactions. We have some questions. I'll make the questions. Yuri's question. Good morning. This project of TCE Pernambuco is like a consultancy offered to the managers. No, in fact, we don't have this name consultancy, but we are available for the managers to help and to answer any questions. We receive the managers that have questions or if they are trying to understand how it works. So the partnerships like it. We know how to do it. We give them the ways, the courses, and the manual, and we help. Obviously, we can be able to help in a way of a consultancy, but the ones that looked for help had the answer. Thank you. Remember that Elmer will be with us in October 21st and 22nd in the on-person seminar. So if you have any other questions, you can ask when they have more details of it. Thank you so much. Now I pass the floor Azor El Akshar, auditor at the Court of Accounts of Santa Catarina. Audit prompts the use of generative AI as an auxiliary technique for external oversight. Good morning. Thank you, Court of Accounts, TCU, for incentivate our work. Can you see my slides? Yes, everything's right. It's a great satisfaction that I present this work of auditing prompts, the use of the generative AI, focusing on ChatGPT as an auxiliary technique for the external oversight made by me as oversight external control of TCE of Santa Catarina. As mentioned by Tanya, we are at a moment of digital transformation that's not only a trend, it's a concrete reality that have been impacting the works of the external oversight bodies. So the audit objects are more complex, and society demands quicker answers, techniques, and based ways. So in this context, tools of generative AI, we got several that are based in artificial intelligence. They are a strategic alliance of the auditors, not to replace their judgment, but to extend analytics and facilitate the interpretation and clarify the context. So this work were made for this necessity to apply and report a concrete experience in the use of generative AI and real monitoring conduct on this way. So the folks to understand on practice how this technology could be incorporated as auxiliary technique on the analysis of documents and to make technical reports in the sense to turn that more efficient, well-based, and communicatives. Please, can wait 1 minute. We have a technical problem on YouTube. Let's check if can fix that. Please let me know if it's working, please. Muito. Okay, we have the slides on. So generative artificial intelligence based on language model trained by millions of texts and documents that are capable to understand instruction in natural language, like if we're talking to other person, and generate coherent answers. So this capacity to simulate ideas, interpret commands, it's a promise to support the public oversight. But to have that it's an efficient way is essential to use this prompt engineering technique. That's to formulate commands as texts guided if the analytic proposal. So in this aspect, the auditor is the architect of those instructions, adjusting the prompt according the stage of the work and validating the received response. So the commands, when well elaborated, they are capable to generate normative explanations. For example, a norm, comparative pictures, and structure recommendations based on the data that were audited. So this model, AI, do not operate in an autonomous way, but as an instrument guided by the auditor, working as a cognitive extension, serving technical analysis and the system of control.
The application of generative AI, it's not an isolated thing, in the case of my work. It was tested in 3 different oversights conducted by myself that currently are located in the steering of companies. The first one was about planning of investment in gas concessionary in Santa Catarina State. The other one was about the provision of power, distribution of power as well, and a third one as well that was a little bit more recent about the governance structure of another concessionary of public services. Each of these cases are very well documented, and that allowed testing the use of AI in different contexts. The tool was used since the phase of the technical support presented by the manager in the critical analysis of these works, a normative fundamentation, and in the creation of the recommendations as well. The methodology that was adopted consisted in the strategic use of different types of prompts. As I said, prompt engineering. both exploring prompts, analytical prompts, comparative prompts, and also redaction prompts, applied based on the phase of the process and the needs of the report. At the same time, it is important to highlight that all the content that was generated by AI was analyzed by a specialist and myself as well. And that generated adjustments and also some disposals of things that were not necessary or were not related to the audited object, excuse me, and always based on criteria such as quality, normative instruction, etc. These three analyzed cases in which AI was applied as an auxiliary technique, as I stressed, in this case of SC gas, of infrastructure, investment, etc., we tried to map out different scenarios and structure recommendations based on the strategic analysis of the sector. And I promise that in Brasilia, I will give very clear examples of the prompts I used. The second case, about Celesc Distribuição, which is the name of the company, we use two very important indicators, which is DEC and FEC, which are instruments used to rank these power concessionaries. One tool was to interpret the resolutions of ANEL, which are very complex with different tiers and purposes to compare data as well. So it was really important because we were able to compare the data of other companies of the sector and also to create fundamented analysis, which created a very sturdy report and that caused a little bit of commotion even in the company. And in the third case, which is one of the most recent cases that we're following up, is the assessment of the level and status of corporation governance adopted since 2020 by the government companies and based on good practices of corporation governance and also by OCBE. In that case, the tool was really useful to match attitude requirements and also with sheets of standards of transparency and quality. In all cases, all reports were really technical and we gained a lot of clarity in the language, in the way in which we redacted the analysis. In addition to that, they were produced in a more agile way. So it was really impressive how much productivity we gained with AI tools. So I can pretty much tell you that AI worked as a partner for us as a tool of external control. How many learned lessons? I mean, I can say that AI has a huge potential as a tool to aid the auditors, aiding it in interpretation of the norms, and especially in the need of a structured redaction of the technical report. And this tool revealed itself very effective in the redaction of ideas in the more coherent way, in the refining of arguments, even in the sense of delving into the arguments, and in the generation of alternative texts, because sometimes I had doubts on how to proceed, and the AI tool gave different alternatives that were pretty adequate. So it is important to stress that AI presents serious and significant limits as well. This content generated by AI can present generalizations. It can present inaccurate information, such as we saw in the judiciary branch, in the case of jurisdiction, etc. So it is important that any content generated by AI passes through an analysis process by humans, an active assessment by humans. In addition to that, the use of the tool depends on the technical graduation of the user. In my case, I graduated in law, so I learned with the tool by trial and error, even though I had studied a lot in the area and I have seen several presentations on how to use prompts, expressions, etc. So it was trial and error, as I said, and through those attempts, I was able to work with the prompts in a more clear way and obtain better results. Something else that happened is that these cannot be isolated or improvised. We need to have everything in synergy so we can establish ethical limits with important discussions so we can understand the oversight process. So AI must be seen as a strategic ally and not as a substitute of the auditor, because we need to give responsibility and autonomy to the auditor, but not a substitute of the auditor. There won't be any AI that will replace our work, especially the fundamental work of the monitoring of public administration. To conclude, I'd say that based on this practical experience, which was not only about those three works, I have used AI maybe in 20 different works that I have conducted here in the oversight agency. So we need to understand this as a strategic ally of external oversight, especially in context of technical reports, whether there are communication-wise or other type. So remember, this is about a tool of aid, smart aid, that can give context, can add a value in the different phases of oversight. And I can see that in any work that I conduct here, even the ones that need to be validated by the cabinet in our account system. These results that we obtain show how feasible it is to use AI and also the potential they have for escalating in other areas, as we have seen in different areas in which the court has been the pioneer in the use of AI tools, especially for analysis of public calls and in the matching of information of data banks. Integrating this type of tool is not only a technical response, but also something institutional in the face of all complexities that we have in public administration, and also in the face of the different attempts that we have conducted within our oversight procedures. So yes, we are in front of a very new dilemma in which auditor becomes a broadened professional, broadened by technology, which is more productive and more strategic within its sphere of performance. Thanks. Thank you. Excellent lecture. As you said, we will have the opportunity to delve into these cases in the seminar in person, alongside other initiatives presented regarding AI, but it is important to have this exchange of information about the use of technology, its benefits, and the uses that technology has today. We have an audience question. It's Alejandro Gonzalez. Good morning. How did you solve the part of the secrecy of AI? If the audited entity requires that information are not spread out, for example, the case of SIGAS was very explicit on that. When we received the information of the audited company, they required us that was stealth information. So the document that was generated by AI was restricted in the sphere of the Court of Accounts of Brazil, and that report was not published. So in that case, we need to be really careful when analyzing that information and not divulge the information, because AI tools also have mechanisms in which that document that you are showing to it, it doesn't use it within the data bank, general data bank. So I can set that so that information is not spread out. Thank you for the response. There is one more question here. Marcelo Santana, I have a question. What is the AI model that it's been used for the conduction of the works? Well, I've been using ChatGPT 4.0. The other modalities of ChatGPT, I mean, I've tested them, but I didn't see much relevance because we work in the legal area. And yeah, I realized that the 4.0 model works pretty well. That is the paid version. It's not the free version. So yeah, in my case, that's what has worked so far. Thank you. One more question regarding the information exchange, also by Marcelo Santana. These prompts are available in the data bank of prompts. I didn't even know there was a data bank for prompts. So yeah, I make myself available to feed this data bank. Thank you, Marcelo Santana, for the questions. This meeting of ours is really important for that type of things as well, because we can learn with each other and also gather efforts, share our knowledge, and also prompts as well. So thanks a lot. Now we move on to the lecture called Turning Words into Understanding, the experience of the TCE of Roraima, the state of Roraima, with the use of plain language. It will be Emanuele Cristina Ramos Barros Afonso, Secretary for Case Processing and Adjudication at the Court of Accounts of the state of Rondônia. Before her lecture, I will play a short video.
O Tribunal de Contas do Estado.
The Court of Accounts of Rondônia changed everything with plain language and with visual rights. The TCE requires that information is clear, direct, and comprehensible or understandable for all public. Since 2023, notifications and certifications gained a new format. Even legal terms obtain more objectivity and a more clean presentation. People now understand what is that the court is trying to convey, and they feel more valued as well, because the Court of Accounts is concerning for the improvement of its communication, and on our behalf we see that it's worth. This plain language receives a lot of good words on behalf of the beneficiaries, and we do this for the external public because we are understanding that on a daily basis people deal less with doubts because the document became more understandable for them. Everything started with training processes and the creation of a work group with servers that believed in the idea and decided to transform process communication of the Court of Accounts. That was a challenge because sometimes you used to look at a text and you didn't understand anything, and now you transform this in something more understandable. And the result is very pleasant because now you can see the understanding in the face of the people, and now people understand what the Court of Accounts want to convey to society. So it's really good, and you can feel that, and you can see that in the eyes of those people that experience that. So the work has evolved. The Court of Accounts has made available effective graphs of decisions and adjudications, and also explanation bulletins to facilitate comprehension on behalf of the people. And now we have fewer questions and more questions to those communications conveyed by the Court of Accounts. Now I can detect what is it that the Court of Accounts is requiring. It facilitates the understanding of the managers and mainly of the technicians, and this brings everyone together and it shows more trust on behalf of everyone. This is a reference project and it has been shared with other Court of Accounts and presented in different events of innovation of the public sector. With this more clear approach and focused on people, the Court of Accounts reinforces its commitment with transparency, the access to information, and also the proximity with society.
Very well. Emmanuel, you have the floor. Can you see my screen? The PowerPoint screen? You need to change it to the presentation mode. Okay. Did it work? No, not yet. We can read it if you want to keep going, but it's not on presentation mode. What about now? You have to stop to share and choose the full screen mode. Okay, that work? Yeah. Good morning. I would like to thank to TCU for the invitation. It's a pleasure to share our project, transforming words in comprehension using the simple language, plain language. The Plain Language project here on the Courts of Accounts of Rondônia started in 2023 through an idea of the president, Paulo Cury, the advisor. He brought several documents that were elaborated by the executive branch of Ceará State and show how effective it were on the execution phase of the debt of the municipalities. And I confess that on that moment we didn't know anything about plain language, and we start to study this topic, and it's something that's different. Talking about a court of account, that's a very specific court, very technical, and the importance to be clear and accessible so society could be able to understand that beginning 2023, as the video showed, we started to receive training about plain language, and we had several courses, and then we got this study group. Emmanuel, can you open your camera, please? Just turn on your camera. Okay, did that work? Your presentation is okay. You just have to turn on your camera. Can you turn on your camera? We're having technical issues with the camera. Okay, please go ahead. Please go ahead, okay. So we start in 2023, and parallel to that, we got the recommendation of TRICON to adopt plain language on the Court of Accounts with this project. Then we start to have several training on this sense, apply initially on the processual communication and the process communications. And that's very complex and legal, and it's important to simplify, but we have to be aware that we know that calling, not respecting the formal way, can annihilate the processes in the future. So this document was very well elaborated, and all our documents went through several stages. We forward forms and surveys to the audience to check if what we want to communicate is being well understood to this population. My camera is not working, in fact. Okay, you can keep going, and then we will turn it on later. And then one of the things that we try to do with our project is the importance of the plain language, but many people has this mistaken understanding of plain language. They believe that's a formal language. If you use plain language is to be clear, direct, eliminating legal terms when it's necessary. For example, in legal documents, you have to talk about it, what the purpose of the document, but when you have a very technical word, I explain it. And don't have prejudice. Plain language is not a informal language. It's clear and specific and accessible. And other things that's very important when I rewrite the text in a simple way, you have to respect technical formality, but we have to be clear. For example, in the process communication are very legal documents. We need to respect legal formalism. And then we have another paradigm. When I use the technique of the visual wall, we have to be aware of communication, because many people think that when you use visual elements, you have to use also techniques. And everything that is going to teach on our seminar on October in TCU. Because when you use visual elements along with plain language, it's not to make the document prettier. We put this example of the flying bills. When we scribe the documents, I like to use this example. We put the symbol for fines, and sometimes people is receiving this communication, and then we have this money flying. And then when we analyze it, the first thing that they say, oh, it's something that's like a bad taste, because it's a debt and a fine, and you put these flying bills. So we have to be aware of what we want to communicate based on a technique. We can't put just to make it pretty or colorful. So we try to receive this document respecting the visual identity of the court, the colors. We have a catalog of icons with good practices as well. This catalog was made from suggestions of all the departments of the court. We heard from the ceremonial to the consular's offices. And this process, we required their suggestions of words that they want to have on this icon catalog. And we made that because we know that not everyone has the skill to work with visual elements. And in all places, we have this agenda of workforce. So to incentivize and have a standardized catalog that respect visual identity of the court and respect the colors, the catalog in a way that the same catalog or the same icon that I use for deadlines in your communication, it could be used in our systems, because all the court systems that were developed since 2024 were incorporated on it those items of the catalog. So any icon, any element, or anyone that work with a plain language on the Court of Accounts of Rondônia needs to respect this standardization of icons, colors, prioritizing visual identity of the court. And then from it, our project was shared in several events of best practices. And I make a question: when we write in a clear way makes the difference. And I can ensure that that's true. Our court, after using this plain language, we have a percentage of 82.4% of responses to process communications. And the most important that I can realize, that's the amount of people that have questions after receive those communications. It's like zero. People receive the communication, these documents, this communication, and they understand what's required from them. So that decrease calls response on the secretariat, the ombudsman calls decrease the amount of responses that are delivered in the wrong way. What makes the process shorter, the response time is shorter, because in our courts there's no capacity. We realize that people are not looking for lawyers. They receive it, the communication, and can respond in a more efficient way and according to the expectation of the courts. And other important results that we got after the plain language communication, from January to April to 2025, we got 100% of response. What's a historical landmark. We were very happy, and it shows that therefore this document demands a higher dedication to break the paradigm. Plain language, it's not a formal language. And other thing is that the bonus of the information have the onus to explain better. And us as Court of Accounts, we have to be aware of it. That's not enough to only to judge. If the citizen is the one that we deliver, society is not understanding what we want to say. To understand what's our role as an institution. So I'm very glad when we have this opportunity to share our project on this event, because I believe that this seed is germinating in our court. Many colleagues that didn't support are supporting and are trying to write in a more simple and clear way, focusing on the citizen. And from 2025 now, we are elaborating other projects in plain language. We are working also with the sentence with high relevance. We started with the project with the consultations response, the analysis of accounts, the ones that have a legal impact. So we can summarize sentence that sometimes has 100 pages. So we can summarize and simplify on the system Simplifica TCE in just one page. So we were able to make the sentence of the courts being accessible. People can apply it in a more clear way and more accessible way. And so on the event, I would like to invite you to this event, the international seminar. We'll share. We are going to give you gifts for the courts that are willing to participate. We are going to have applications so you can build these visual elements on your courts. We're going to share our projects, our documents. So the ones that want to participate will be very welcomed. And I believe that we'll have many new things for your court. So what you need from the Rondônia Court of Accounts, work with plain language, we are available for you. So the idea of this presentation is just to spread the curiosity so you can watch our project on the event because I'm short of time. So I believe that we can explain better on this seminar. Emanuele, thank you so much for your presentation. Congratulations to TC Rondônia for this initiative. It's a work that the TCU believes and to get closer to the citizen. We are monitoring the chat box of YouTube. We don't have many questions. We have one. What we have much expressions of congratulations. People agree with you and they really liked your presentation. Okay, let's go to the question. Fabio Granja asks, it's my boss. The following question. Plain language is different from a simple language. As I mentioned, plain language is clear, accessible, that provides to take those terms, those legal words, when we work with plain language. On the contrary, that we first thought, we can translate in a simple way that everyone can understand and to break this paradigm, to speak in a very formal way that no one's understand. So populations needs to understand with our clients are the citizens. So the object is to have a clear communication. So the TC of Rondônia has 100% of their communication on a plain language with visual elements. We didn't abandon the legal formalism. All the documents goes through tests, and as we started by the processual communication, legal documents that demands this respect to the formalism, but they went through tests of the president, our civil servants from cleaning, our employees, all the documents passed through 50 people, 50 analysis from auditors, from other courts, lawyers, and the proof that is that we implemented on 2023 and the results are being positive. As we see on the video, everyone said that they really understand what the court wants to communicate. Congratulations once more for your presentations, your work. Now let's go to the last presentation of the day. Just remember that Emanuele will be with us on the on-site event. You can exchange information. Our next presentation will be from Natalia Levino, Associate Professor at the University of Alagoas, Institutional Racism in SUS. How SUS auditing activities can contribute to combating racial inequality in healthcare delivery. It's the internal control, right, Natalia? Good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation. We are doing this work, but who is going to present is my student. Just to give some context, this work is different because we are developing that in a master's. So we are at the phase, we are evolving the work, so those are partial results. We are still doing this work. So today I came to present some of the results that we got, but in the presentation, it won't be me to present, but my colleague that will show a little bit more of what we are doing inside the post-graduation project of public policy management on the University of Tocantins. This topic, can you see my screen?
Actually, you're not displaying it. It is in PowerPoint, but it's not on display. Man, you need to share the screen that has the presentation and not the PowerPoint one. But I mean, we can see either way. Yeah, I'm trying to put it on full screen. Now we can. Now we can see it, yeah. Good. So this is an activity that Justiniano, which is my student, was already doing, and he suggested that topic, and we thought it was really interesting because it shows different provocations that I will point out during the presentation. So the main inspiration for the study that we defined at the beginning was the impact on the population. So Black Brazilians depend on the unified health system to have access to healthcare, whether it is for primary attention or complex attention. And we identified that by social indicators and economic indicators that we have in Brazil. So we can see that this is a country with a lot of inequalities. And there we have the Unified Health System, SUS, that has this priority of treating this population. And when we try to do that, especially in the black population, we found this approach. So we have a constitutional base which grants healthcare system in the 196 article, forbids discrimination and guarantees equalities. So institutions cannot have this type of discrimination events. And then we tried analyzing how that was being approached within the Ministry of Health itself. Prior to that, we started analyzing what would be the legal frameworks and the commitments that defined or that were established in the law to establish these type of priorities and to see how they were being incorporated. One of them is the policy of comprehensive black healthcare of the Ordinance of 2009 that establishes the mechanisms for healthcare and black population and facing institutional racism in the unified health system. In addition to that, through the Ministry of Health, we got this racial equality by obtaining quality healthcare. And also this Ordinance 344 of 2017 turned mandatory the field of race and color in the systems of information of healthcare. So based on these legal frameworks, we started assessing what was the strategic role of auditing in the unified health system and how it was incorporated within the states, the municipalities, and in the republic itself. And we started seeing that there were some failures and that auditing was the essential tool to identify those failures and how that was incorporated within the processes. Another point, transparency within institutions that aims to guarantee transparency and trust in healthcare, and also supporting governance that will grant subsidies for all the situations when providing services that can end up in institutional racism. So if these three principles are being executed and they are being assessed in the process of auditing that was being implemented. So there was detection of failures and transparency at an institutional level, and what was the support of the governance that was being exerted when it comes to institutional racism. What have we used in terms of research technology? Well, this research aims the analysis of annual reports and also in controllers' offices in the last 10 years through the law of access to information. So we were trying to collect this information with the Court of Accounts of the states to try to verify if these elements that we had there in the legal sphere and also in the transparency sphere, if they were being incorporated in all the measurements that were being adopted by that agency. And what are the variables that we were examining? So we wanted to identify incidents on the healthcare of black population in the auditing reports, and what is the profile of the agency of oversight, and that difference between the agencies and courts. And for that, we implemented the soft system methodology, which is a tool of structuring of the problem. And why? Well, because we want to understand and identify, which, by the way, is the next phase of the project, which is identify how the people that are executing and that are in the background of this auditing process, how they understand if this is being executed or not, and what is it that makes it difficult in the executing process, and what are the barriers. So what is established in the law is being put into practice. So the SSM comes to aid in this process of construction and structuring of the problem. And in terms of data, what do we have today? We have some results, preliminary results, through ECMSBO, through the law of information access, and most of it is silent information. So we have 34 agencies, and they admitted not to have conducted any specific action to verify the performance or the happening of these institutional racism in the unified health system in the last few years. So we saw that information, and 56% said, look, we are not conducting any specific action, so we are trying to work with the policy, but we do not have any specific action that promotes specifically for this public of black colored people, and we did not identify anything. 18% referred the incident to other agencies, and those 11 agencies identified and reported that it was not up to their competence to execute, and sometimes they defined all the legal framework that could be of their competence, but these agencies said no. The ones that should be executing that should be the Secretariat of Health of the state and of the municipality that is responsible for those actions. And 7 organs, 11% of our sample, stated that they did not have competence to approach the subject, even though that they should, even in the granting of principles, laws, and norms of public administration. So this was another point that we tried to approach, because within the legal base of the agencies themselves, we tried to see if there were directions so they could deal with the topic, and they were. Because if they didn't have any, then we could say, okay, so they are not to blame, etc. But we were expecting that the agency that they were proactive to do that, or to see if they were trying to dodge this responsibility. So this was the analysis that we were trying to conduct on these 7 agencies, and they defined that they not have the competence to approach the topic, even though that legally they do have that responsibility established in the norms by the agency itself. So another point that we were able to identify within this collection of data is that only 3 agencies showed any recognition of racial events. And this is really concerning because this is already established in the law. So this should be more better implemented by these monitoring agencies. And when we see that such small number is the one that is being applying the law how as it should be, is something really concerning, and we should analyze this. And this should be the object of debate in the next comments and lectures that we will propose by the end of these works. So these findings show systematic violence within the agencies of oversight. And also, regarding transparency, there were agencies that did not respond, and this shows a gap. These 3 agencies, we were trying to elicit information on their behalf, and we were saying, yeah, we should have access to this information. This information should be public, even though this is very sensitive information. I know it shouldn't be exposed, but there was one in particular that they were pushing it back. They were saying, no, we do not understand the question. What do you want from this information? Are you trying to conduct some research? And we say, yeah, we're trying to do that. But they insisted and said, okay, no, we are not going to send this information. And they did not submit it. So this is something that we were able to see through our works. And what is it that we can map out with this? Well, there is some sort of bias, racial-wise, that influence the behavior of people regarding other members of other racial groups, and we can see that comparing it to literature, the literature that we have available, and we can identify this duality that exists in this racial bias within monitoring agencies, and there are a lot of policies that are not equal. Even when they are not trying to be racist, they produce different results for different racial categories. And this is important because if we consider, let me go back a little. So, if we consider almost all the unified health system, almost all of it is used by black population. So, we start seeing that there are concerning things. Especially because we can see that there are variants that tell us that we should concern. Most of black people use the Unified Health System, SUS, and we are having that measure of not considering those effects on that population. So that really identifies unequal results for different racial categories. And we also see systemic discrimination, and this happens when practical policies contribute for racial discrimination in a systematic way in areas such as healthcare, education, and housing. And this has been shown by the literature. And in those works we're conducting, we are identifying that as well, especially in our research group. So this is something that needs to be worked upon to try to verify why this has not been done by the oversight agencies, and what are the public policies that need to be conducted so this is, as a matter of fact, incorporated. So another point, the principles of the SUS, Unified Health System. This was created trying to broaden in a more equal way all citizens based on the different needs of the population. And this was the information I was looking for. Around 67% of the population depend exclusively on the SUS, and they are blacks. So when we see this previous scenario of discrimination, and there is no distorting, or actually there are distortings in the way this is being treated, so we are not creating policies to actually provide service to the specific population that are part of the 77% of the population that use the SUS. And that's where DenaSUS is created, because this is a management tool that tries to guarantee access and quality of healthcare, and it can be a potential ally in the developing of actions that can combat institutional racism. So we have as a purpose, as a final purpose of this work that we are developing, trying to create some mechanisms that can be incorporated even by DenaSUS itself. The auditing contributes to this management of the public services actions focused on the access, timely access, and quality access, as long as it is incorporated and spread out with what we understand as a policy of assistance for that population. And what is the perspective we have that we see within this research? Well, developing research about institutional racism in the SUS, and we had a previous research, and we observed there are very few studies that have verified that, and ours is one of those that have bring a different perspective on racial situations, global alignment. So an approach of the UN that tries to guarantee healthy life for everybody, including the need of creating that lives up to the margin of social needs, and this transformating potential that needs to have this service of healthcare in Brazil. But it needs to be incorporated. All these principles need to be so. So it needs to be seen as something legal within the Constitution as to give service through this process of auditing within the healthcare service. So it is fundamental to divide this within the nature of each of the tools to generate social justice. So this is something that we need to get into more details in our work, but in this first moment we just needed to map out everything so we could identify how this process was being followed up by the agencies of oversight. Thank you. Thank you, Natalia, for your lecture. Really excellent topic, really relevant as you said. 77% of the population that use the SUS and that are blacks. So we do know how often racism occurs depending on the institutions. I have some questions here from the audience. The first one is Francelio Alves. Could you specify in what areas this was conducted? Yeah, it was in the healthcare area. And all agencies that were assessed were in this healthcare area. In the secretariats of healthcare and in the sphere regarding the SUS, the Unified Health System, and it was in the healthcare area that we conducted this research because it is expected and established in the law that they should. We have another question here by Rafael. Could you give an example of what would be racism in a unified health system? I think he wants a specific case of something that might happen in the unified health system. Yeah, that's really complex, Rafael, because we know 77% of the population use the SUS, and it should be focused, this service of assistance, in the regions that provide service to this population. But the deficiency of this type of service is already considered a case of racism. Why? Because if I cannot provide service to the 67% of the population that use the service, and we don't have monitoring regarding race and core as it is established by the law, and we cannot give service in an equitable way and with equity social-wise for this public, then you will have a very high percentage of vulnerability in this population that demands this service the most. So we have cases, for example, based on the income of the population and on the race of the population. There are people who are more vulnerable socially wise, and we identified that yeah, this service does not reach this population in an equal way. So there are a lot of researches that show this, and we can see this in housing, but in education as well. But in healthcare, this is more explicit. So the number of black women that are not um, blacks that are reached with homicides and other cases that take to potential violent crimes. Also in this area of healthcare, there are people who die hospitalized and do not have the guarantee of this service. But if we want to map out which cases, then we would have to have a detailment going into hospitals and matching this information to try to identify that, but it was not the object of our research. We have one more question, Natalia. Francelio Alves. Sadly, we verified that racism occurs in other areas as well. But in the case of SUS, was racism just due to malpractice or just a denial of service? So how did it come up? Well, this was not our object of the research, especially of these patients that reach SUS. Our goal here is that given that there is a legal base and that it is expected and established in the law, so how is this being dealt with in the SUS? So the law establishes that the unified health system should have the obligation to create these racial mechanisms within their policy, and that is not being even mentioned by the control agencies. And there is another debate there. If it's not being followed up by this agency, by these oversight agencies, and there are some agencies that do not know that they have to do it, then we are really worried about how is this working in practice when we need to give attention. Do we have enough equitable measures guaranteeing quality? Because this is a legal norm that is not being followed up by the monitoring agencies. So we are going the wrong way, especially in this monitoring process alongside the healthcare systems. That's why the healthcare area it's being followed up by these agencies, but we are trying to assess the ones that need to follow this with the SUS.
Thank you, Natalia. We have no further questions. I thank for the presentation. I thank for all the speakers. At least the other projects will be presented on the seminar on the October 21st and 2nd. It will be a very rich seminar. So thank you once more. Thank you for your support and the audience. So we are finishing here. Thank you so much.